Jae-soon marries Sik, a man with 2 daughters, bringing along her own son. After marriage, she gets no affection from her husband. Even their home still displays family photos of Sik with his ex-wife. Jae-soon's mom thinks her daughter married rich this time, so she only picks expensive items when shopping with Jae-soon, things she normally wouldn't buy herself. She deliberately brings Jae-soon along for these shopping trips, but right after she pays with the card, Sik immediately gets the spending alert. Sik looks very upset about this. That evening, he comes home in a bad mood. He steps on his stepson's toy. Sik scolds both mother and son angrily. Then he suspiciously checks the fridge. He finds no new groceries were bought, so he secretly checks Jae-soon's spending records. That's when he discovers she's been using his money to support her mother. Seeing her daughter always says yes, the mom now asks for 5 million won to pay her mortgage. She actually never plans to repay it. Jae-soon can't refuse. At the bank counter, using her husband's card, she's shocked to find he changed the password. Embarrassed, she tells her mom she forgot the password. Her mom's smile disappears instantly. Back home, Jae-soon tells her stepdaughters not to overuse their phones, but they ignore her completely. They just move to another room to keep playing. When Sik asks about the girls later, Jae-soon tells him the truth. Angry, he scolds the girls in their room, but they lie, saying they just picked up their phones. Sik then yells at Jae-soon for lying. He also questions her about unapproved spending. Jae-soon wonders how he knows. Sik admits he set up spending alerts. He claims it's not to spy, but because money doesn't grow on trees. The next day, Sik takes his daughters out for a fancy meal to apologize. Jae-soon's father happens to see this. He realizes his grandson isn't accepted in this new family, so he picks up his grandson from school and treats him to Korean barbecue. He even buys him a favorite toy. Jae-soon quickly follows when she finds out. Back then, she went against her father's wishes. Her second marriage ruined their relationship. Jae-soon watches her father's aging back disappear into the distance. Tears keep streaming down her face. Meanwhile at home, her son's toy gets taken by his sister. When the older sister sees this, she sides with the sister and makes the brother kneel to apologize. Jae-soon returns to hear her daughter complaining about her son. After speaking, she takes her sister to their room. Jae-soon comforts her son, telling him to always let his sister play with his toys, not knowing it was a gift from his grandfather. Jae-soon teaches her son to be giving. The mother and son keep getting ignored at home. The family goes out to eat. Jae-soon tries to please her husband and stepdaughter. She doesn't even eat herself, leaving her son aside, constantly serving meat and dishes to the other 3. Her husband scolds their son for not focusing on eating. Jae-soon quickly takes away her son's toy. Her stepdaughter smirks at this, so she keeps trying to please the girl, putting the best food in front of her, but still gets treated coldly. Her stepdaughter even complains the food tastes bad. Kind Jae-soon forces a smile. Then her sister-in-law, the flight attendant, comes home. She brings special gifts for the 2 girls. Jae-soon's son just watches enviously. The sister-in-law hands her suitcase to Jae-soon, telling her to wash all the dirty clothes and underwear inside. Jae-soon agrees, hoping to gain their approval. This makes the sisters act worse. Soon, the younger sister breaks her brother's toy on purpose. The older sister even hits him when she hears. Jae-soon hears her son crying but hides in the kitchen, afraid to step in, until her sister-in-law wakes up and tells her to handle it. Jae-soon scolds her son to keep peace at home. Her son walks to his room sadly. Jae-soon apologizes to her stepdaughter, then cries alone when no one's looking. Her son understands his mom's struggles. Later, Jae-soon's mom attends a class reunion. Old classmates mock women who remarry unhappily. She knows they're talking about Jae-soon. This makes her very upset. Just then, she sees Jae-soon and her husband outside the door. She drags Sik inside to introduce him to her classmates. She keeps bragging about how rich he is. Sik understands what his mother-in-law is doing. He says he'll pay for everyone's meal today. This makes the mother even more excited. She orders the most expensive food and drinks. She even forces Sik to drink with everyone, but she accidentally spills food on him. Sik gets very angry when he gets home because of his mother-in-law's behavior. Jae-soon can only quietly try to make him feel better. The mother brags about what happened that day. Hearing this, the father worries about his daughter. On Jae-soon's father's birthday, the family prepares a big dinner, but no one dares to start eating. The mother insists on waiting for Sik. After an hour, the food gets cold. Finally, Sik shows up. The mother acts very nice to him, but Jae-sik looks annoyed. He puts down his gift, doesn't even greet his father-in-law, and leaves. Even so, the mother still walks him downstairs. This makes the father and aunt very angry. They scold her for acting like that. They have a big fight. Jae-soon cries, feeling guilty. The mother says she only wants Jae-sik to treat Jae-soon better. She thinks she's helping her daughter. Later, the grandfather visits his grandson. He learns the boy is being bullied at home. He hears Jae-soon often cries and isn't happy. The grandfather meets with Jae-sik. He asks him to care more for his family, but Jae-sik doesn't change. He warns Jae-soon not to tell family problems to others. He says she should talk to him directly. He doesn't like outsiders in his family business. Jae-soon quickly apologizes. She says her father isn't an outsider. To check if his daughter is happy, the grandfather visits her home with gifts. It's their first time visiting. When Jae-soon hears they're coming, she hides photos of Jae-sik with his ex-wife. Jae-sik talks awkwardly with his father-in-law, then goes to his room. While wandering around, the old father still finds this photo. Seeing his grandson's expression, he realizes his daughter isn't happy in her marriage. Back home, looking at the food in the fridge, he feels very upset. Then his wife comes back with expensive medicine. When he learns it's bought with their daughter's money, the father completely loses his temper. He throws all the food out of the fridge. His outburst scares everyone. Jae-soon sees her daughter putting cheap makeup on her face. Worried it might hurt her skin, she tries to stop her. But the daughter says she's interfering. She calls her real mom, claiming Jae-soon hit her. Then she runs away with her sister without eating. After some trouble, they find their real mother. When Jae-sik hears what happened, he yells at Jae-soon. He tells her not to discipline his daughter again. Next time, just pretend you don't see anything. What hurts Jae-soon more is, she overhears Se-bang talking with Jae-sik about his ex-wife. This makes her remember yesterday when he said he was working late. She brought him a homemade lunch, but no one was at the office. All these things make her suspicious. Are they secretly seeing each other? This thought makes Jae-soon break down, so she dresses up nicely, hoping to spend time with her husband. But he suddenly gets a call about working late again. Jae-soon feels very disappointed. She starts imagining all kinds of things. But soon her worries disappear because he invites her to an important company party. This means he accepts her as his wife. But at the party, people look at her strangely. She feels very uncomfortable. Jae-sik doesn't introduce her to anyone. He just greets people and leaves her alone. Jae-soon wants to leave. Then a rich lady talks to her. She asks why she looks different from last time. The lady mistakes her for the ex-wife. This breaks Jae-soon's heart. Suddenly, someone is drowning in the pool. Without thinking, Jae-soon jumps in to help, forgetting she can't swim. After Jae-soon calls for help, both of them are saved. When they get home, Jae-soon's husband doesn't even ask if she's okay. Instead, he starts yelling at her right away. He says she embarrassed him in front of everyone. He even blames her for losing his business deal. This makes Jae-soon feel terrible. Later, Jae-sik visits the drowning person in the hospital. To his surprise, the person thanks Jae-soon for saving them. They even agree to sign the contract after all. This makes Jae-sik very happy. He goes to a flower shop and buys a bouquet. When he gets home, he gives it to Jae-soon. Jae-soon feels touched. It's the first flowers she's received since getting married. Back in their room, Jae-sik opens the closet and sees all the neat clothes and clean room. He remembers how messy life was with his ex-wife. He can't help but hug Jae-soon tightly. He feels so grateful. The next day at a family dinner, the husband keeps serving meat to his two daughters. He completely ignores his son. The boy just wants his father's love, even just a quick look. Jae-soon notices her son looks sad. She quickly gives him some beef. Later, she takes the kids to a toy store to pick anything they want. The boy likes an expensive toy, but after thinking, he chooses the smallest, cheapest one. Jae-soon picks up a big toy and asks why he didn't want it. He says his sister told him all dad's money is hers, so he should take something cheap. His good behavior breaks Jae-soon's heart. Every morning, Jae-soon makes special breakfasts for the girls. She puts them right in front of them. When the boy asks for some of his sister's food, his mean sister says no. Jae-soon stands by her son but stays quiet. After breakfast, she takes them to school. The boy says he wants to go to his sister's school. Jae-soon lies that there are no spots left. He watches sadly as his sisters ride the school bus. One day, Jae-soon's mother calls her over. She tells her about a neighbor whose second marriage failed because the husband kept seeing his ex-wife. They ended up back together. The mother suggests putting the grandson under Jium-sik's family registry. This would keep Jium-sik from leaving. This will also solve their grandson's school enrollment issue. After struggling with the decision, Jae-soon gathers courage that night to ask her husband about registering their son. To her surprise, Jium-sik agrees immediately. Her worries were unnecessary after all. Jae-soon feels overjoyed at this moment. The next day, Jium-sik consults a lawyer about the registration, but the lawyer's response shocks him. Registering your stepson is possible, but he'll gain equal inheritance rights just like your two daughters. Hearing this, Jium-sik hesitates. Recently, Jium-sik ran into his ex-wife at a karaoke bar. Lazy and irresponsible, she's deep in debt, and now works as a hostess despite her angelic looks. Whether from lingering feelings or fear she'll influence their daughters badly, Jium-sik secretly pays off her debts. His ex-mother-in-law visits his office to thank him and subtly tests if they might remarry. Jae-soon accidentally witnesses this. Having never met the woman before, Jium-sik lies that she's an employee's mother. He scolds Jae-soon for visiting unannounced. When Jae-soon suggests lunch together, he claims an urgent meeting and sends her away. As she leaves, his ex-wife and daughter arrive. Watching their happy reunion, Jium-sik smiles warmly. After driving them to an amusement park, his daughter begs him to join them. Though he initially cites work, he eventually embraces his ex-wife. This rekindled connection continues for their daughter's sake. But Jae-soon discovers their closeness when she finds photos while cleaning. She feels threatened as Jium-sik happily gazes at their pictures. Then he receives luxury purchase alerts, assuming Jae-soon is overspending again. Instead, she arrives at his office with shopping bags, apologizing for visiting unannounced. She hands him a gift box, thanking his ex-wife for caring for their daughters. Her generosity makes Jium-sik ashamed. Later, he visits his ex-wife with gifts, only to find a strange man there. Jealous, he scolds her for improper behavior. Meanwhile, Jae-soon prepares a birthday feast for their daughter, but her husband and daughter don't come home. They don't answer her calls or texts. Turns out, Jium-sik took their daughter to see his ex-wife. The four of them are happily celebrating the daughter's birthday. Jae-soon notices they're out of seasoning. On her way to the store, she sees her husband's car. Then she sees something that breaks her heart. She watches Jium-sik happily with his ex-wife. This makes her feel completely hopeless. Her father happens to walk by and see her. Angry, he wants to confront Jium-sik. Jae-soon stops him and tells him to pretend he saw nothing. Her father never liked this marriage. He tells her to get divorced immediately. Keeping photos of his ex-wife was bad enough. Now their son is ignored and bullied by his stepsisters. But Jae-soon refuses. She believes she can change her family's attitude. Her father is extremely disappointed with her stubbornness. At home, Jae-soon sits deep in thought. Then Jium-sik returns with their daughter. He doesn't mention dinner. He lies that kindergarten ran late. Maybe Jium-sik feels guilty. He suddenly hugs Jae-soon. He says he'll take her on a trip to cheer her up. Jae-soon's father drinks every day to forget his worries. When drunk, he complains to his wife, saying she doesn't know how their daughter really lives, and that she keeps asking Jae-soon for money. His wife thinks he's just drunk and ignores him. Then she asks Jae-soon for money, this time because her sister has a new boyfriend. They're getting married soon but have no dowry. Jae-soon feels uncomfortable. She says she'll ask Jium-sik after they set a wedding date. Then Jae-soon gives her an envelope, saying it's living expenses from her son-in-law. Soon, Jium-sik takes the family on a trip. Everyone looks happy and cheerful, but fate likes to play tricks. Jium-sik gets a call from his ex-wife. She has appendicitis and needs help. Seeing his family having fun together, Jium-sik finally hangs up on his ex-wife. Wanting to keep Jium-sik close, Jae-soon reminds him about their son's registration. Jium-sik awkwardly says he'll handle it soon. Their conversation is overheard by his daughter. The daughter strongly opposes registering her brother's residency. She even threatens her father. If her brother gets registered, I'll run away from home with my little sister. This leads to a big fight between father and daughter, which escalates to the police station. Meanwhile, the ex-mother-in-law arrives at the station. Without knowing the full story, she accuses Jae-soon. What terrible thing did you do to make a child call the police at night? As she yells at Jae-soon, Jae-soon's mother arrives at the station too. Seeing her daughter being bullied, the mother immediately stands up for her. They start fighting physically, pulling each other's hair. Eventually, both drunk women get locked in a holding cell. There, the mother finally understands her daughter's struggles in this second marriage. She thought Jae-soon married rich and would live comfortably, but she kept asking her daughter for money. Now she regrets not listening to her husband. Tears of regret stream down her face. The next day, the mother finds Jae-soon and tells her, "Divorce if you're unhappy. Your parents will always support you." But Jae-soon still doesn't want to give up on her marriage. She believes she can improve her family situation. Meanwhile, when Jim-sik's ex-wife learns he plans to register Jae-soon's son, she worries this will reduce her daughter's inheritance. She decides to confront her ex-husband. She calls to arrange a meeting. At the same time, Jae-soon dresses up nicely at home and goes to surprise her husband for a date. But when she arrives at his office, he's not there. She calls to ask where he is. He lies, saying he's working at the office. Jae-soon feels disappointed by his lie. She suspects he's with his ex-wife, and she's right. The ex-wife warns Jim-sik, "Don't you dare register Jae-soon's son without my permission. Everything you own belongs to our daughters. No one else can take it." Jim-sik says it's not her decision, then angrily leaves. When he returns home, Jae-soon refuses to be controlled by others. She brings up her son's registration again. Their son is almost old enough to start school. As usual, Jim-sik brushes off Jae-soon's concerns with vague replies. Jae-soon notices her husband is in a bad mood. She doesn't dare push the matter further. Suddenly, a violent storm hits. Jim-sik's ex-wife gets stranded while vacationing in the suburbs with friends. When their eldest daughter hears the news, she begs her father to rescue her mom. The ex-mother-in-law can't reach her daughter either. She asks Jim-sik to check on the situation. Seeing his daughter so upset, Jim-sik decides to brave the storm and rescue his ex-wife. Jae-soon worries about his safety and suggests asking the police for help instead. But the daughter yells at her stepmom, calling her heartless. "You'll be responsible if my mom dies." Despite Jae-soon's pleas, Jim-sik insists on going. Jae-soon still tries to stop him, begging at his car window in the pouring rain. But Jim-sik drives off without hesitation. Jae-soon is left crying in the rain. When Jim-sik finally reaches the suburbs, he sees his ex-wife laughing with friends as they board a taxi. Too exhausted to face Jae-soon, he spends the night at his office. Jae-soon waits up all night for news. Meanwhile, their daughter stays at her mom's place. When their younger daughter gets stomach pains, Jim-sik rushes to the hospital. He and his ex-wife busy themselves caring for the girl, leaving Jae-soon alone with her worries. Unable to stay away, she secretly follows them. She arrives just as Jim-sik and his ex-wife appear together. This confirms her worst fears. Heartbroken, Jae-soon returns home. After much thought, she decides to stop being passive. She gathers courage to meet the ex-wife. The ex-wife greets her with hostility. "Don't even think," she warns, "about registering your son under Jim-sik's name. All the property belongs to my daughters." Jae-soon is furious. "Why should an outsider interfere in my family matters?" she mocks. "You gave me such a great husband and 2 ready-made daughters without the pregnancy pains." To rub it in, she pays with Jim-sik's credit card, boasting how nice it is to spend his money. The ex-wife is so angry she nearly chokes. When the ex-mother-in-law hears her daughter was humiliated, to get her daughter back together with her ex-son-in-law, she secretly meets with him and tells him about the meeting between the 2 wives. She stirs trouble by calling Jae-soon a scheming woman, warning him to be careful. Meanwhile, chaos breaks out at home. The sisters try to set up their new brother. The older sister buys just 1 hot dog on purpose. When the brother just glances at it curiously, the younger sister provokes him. While the older sister hides nearby, waiting, hearing fake cries, the sister shames the brother. Jae-soon happens to return and see this. This time, she doesn't stay quiet but scolds the sister fairly. Her husband hears this when he comes home. Both daughters run crying to their father. Late at night, Jim-sik wants to talk to his upset wife. Before he can speak, Jae-soon shares her parenting views. She says she'll handle all matters between the kids and his ex-wife, then drinks his alcohol in one gulp. Jim-sik is shocked by her change. Jae-soon prepares special food for her son's school event. Her husband promised to attend but misses it for a work meeting. Jae-soon is disappointed. They're the only family absent, making their son envy other kids' fathers. Meanwhile, the father secretly attends his daughter's event, laughing happily with his ex-wife's family. After the event, Jae-soon carries her son home and discovers the lie. Her husband's meeting was actually seeing his ex-wife. Jae-soon feels angry and hopeless but doesn't confront him. That night, when he's asleep, she tries to find evidence by secretly taking his phone. But he's actually awake. As she tries unlocking it, he appears behind her. She drops the phone in shock. He picks it up, glaring angrily. He never expected his proper wife would snoop. Their trust is completely broken. It feels like living in hell. Though Jae-sik doesn't say the word divorce, his meaning is very clear. Jae-soon angrily slams the door, finally letting out all her bottled up feelings. Jae-soon says she's given everything to the family since marriage, but she's still treated like a lowly maid and stepmother. When she cares for the daughter, she gets rejected. The girl yells she's not her real mom and has no right. Even her own son suffers from the daughter's bullying. That's not all. Now he even calls his ex-wife's mother-in-law, but never calls her parents that. After a whole year of marriage, photos of his ex-wife still sit in the living room. He's never introduced her to his friends. She doesn't feel like the lady of the house, just a hired cleaning maid. She put up with it all to avoid divorce, but Jae-sik says she's imagining things. None of this excuses checking his phone. Jae-soon reveals she knows about his lie to meet his ex. Jae-sik suddenly looks guilty. He begs Jae-soon to let him explain, but Jae-soon decides to leave. She goes to her parents' house to stay, only to find them fighting too. When they finally calm down, Jae-soon feels too ashamed to mention her fight. She checks into a hotel instead, but realizes she left without taking anything. Meanwhile, Jae-sik sits on the sofa, remembering all Jae-soon has done, regretting how often he contacted his ex. He runs out to find Jae-soon. Jae-soon stands crying by the road. Jae-sik hugs her tightly. He explains he lied to avoid worrying her, says he has no feelings left for his ex, promises never to lie again. Facing his sincere apology, kind Jae-soon forgives him. After this fight, their relationship grows stronger. But seeing this, the daughter hates Jae-soon more. She takes out her anger on her brother, making him wet himself. Their mother ignores it, just covers him and goes back to sleep. Only when the kindergarten teacher complains does she take her son to see a doctor. The doctor says the boy has severe depression. Jae-soon feels terribly guilty after hearing this. Since her second marriage, her son has been bullied by his sister but never fought back. His bottled-up anger causes him to wet himself. He endured everything because he didn't want to upset his mom. To help her son recover, Jae-soon focuses all her attention on him. This makes her two daughters very upset. The younger sister mocks him as bedwetter. Jae-soon scolds her daughter angrily and makes her apologize to her brother. The older daughter takes her sister to their grandma to complain. They lie that their stepmom often bullies them at home. Grandma tells her daughter everything when she gets home. She advises her to remarry her ex-husband to protect the girls. Later, the sister-in-law angrily asks Jae-soon why she didn't wash her clothes. Jae-soon doesn't obey like before. She tells her to wash her own clothes from now on. The sister-in-law has no reply. Jae-soon then plans to take her son to the amusement park. She asks her sister-in-law to pick up the girls from school. The sister-in-law wonders if Jae-soon has gone crazy, but Jae-soon no longer cares about their feelings. When Jae-sik comes home from work, his sister complains to him. She says his perfect wife has finally shown her true colors. She neglects all housework and only cares about her own son. She also allegedly bullies the two nieces. Jae-sik looks confused. His wife's recent behavior has been strange. The next day, when Jae-soon argues with the girls again, Jae-sik first scolds the disobedient older daughter. He warns her to listen to Jae-soon and stop bullying her brother with her sister. Then he privately criticizes Jae-soon for only caring about her son. He says they shouldn't separate your child and my child anymore. He notices his wife's recent mood changes, but Jae-soon still doesn't mention their son's illness. This creates tension in their marriage. The next day, the rebellious older daughter skips school. The ex-wife angrily confronts Jae-sik, asking if the stepmom abused their daughter. She says the girl wouldn't skip school without a reason. Jae-sik immediately calls Jae-soon. He blames her for not noticing their daughter skipped school. When Jae-soon hears his ex-wife's voice on the phone, although she's angry, she finally controls her temper. Luckily, the eldest daughter didn't run away. She's hiding at her grandmother's house. When Jae-sik and his ex-wife find their daughter, the girl yells at them angrily. She blames them for having her but never being good parents. She grew up listening to their constant fights and had to take care of her little sister every day. Even when she felt terrible inside, she had to pretend to be strong. The divorce wasn't meant to hurt her, but it still left deep scars. After Jae-sik brings his daughter home, Jae-soon, feeling guilty, quickly goes to apologize to the girl. To escape the family conflict, the husband packs his bags, saying he's going on a business trip. Before leaving, he warns his wife to pay more attention to both daughters. Next morning, Jae-soon brings breakfast to please the girl, but the daughter knocks it to the floor. Meanwhile, their son's depression isn't improving. The doctor says full recovery will take much longer. That night, Eun-hee finds her son's sketchbook. She realizes he's been drawing all his anger toward his sister. For her son's health, Eun-hee tearfully packs his clothes. Though it breaks her heart, she sends him to stay with her parents. His hatred is worse than she imagined. Jae-soon focuses on caring for the girls. Their relationship slowly improves. At her parents' house, the son's condition gets better. Soon, the husband returns home. The couple calmly reaches an agreement. They decide to work together to help their children, to fix the kids' relationships. He suggests taking Jae-soon and their son to the daughter's kindergarten outing. Jae-soon happily prepares food for the trip, but both daughters refuse to go and tell their birth mother. The furious ex-wife calls Ji-sik immediately. She insists she must join the family camping trip. Ji-sik feels helpless because of his ex-wife's unreasonable behavior. After thinking, he asks Jae-soon to compromise one more time. He promises he'll come back soon. So Jae-soon prepares Ji-sik's favorite dishes at home, but things always go wrong at times like this. Just as Ji-sik is about to go home for dinner with his wife, his ex-wife twists her ankle. Ji-sik has to stay and take care of her. Though he texts Jae-soon and tells her the truth, the wife, who's been waiting for him all evening, feels her feelings are being hurt again. When Ji-sik finally gets ready to go home, he sees his ex-wife sitting on a park bench. Worried, he walks over to her. For some strange reason, they end up talking until 3 a.m. Realizing this is wrong, he tries to call his wife to explain but can't find a good excuse. Frustrated, he sleeps in his car. When the family is about to drive back, his ex-wife takes Ji-sik's credit card, saying she'll buy things for the kids. Ji-sik rushes home nervously. He prepares many excuses to explain to his wife. But Jae-soon, who waited all night, only says one thing: "Let's get divorced." Ji-sik panics and tries to stop her, but Jae-soon pushes his hand away and leaves without hesitation. Meanwhile, with the credit card, the ex-wife ignores her daughters and obsessively shops for designer bags. The older daughter copies her, trying on clothes. When she looks up, her little sister is gone. The irresponsible mother only blames the older daughter. This makes the girl feel worthless, like she matters less than a handbag to her mom. Ji-sik rushes to the mall. He hugs his daughter tightly. Now he completely gives up on his ex-wife. Luckily, store staff help find the younger daughter. At home, Ji-sik sees Jae-soon's empty closet and feels deep regret. He brings gifts to his father-in-law's house. This is the first time he's visited Jae-soon's parents since their marriage. He even calls them father-in-law. For the first time, Jae-soon's parents are overjoyed. Her mother quickly prepares a feast for her son-in-law. At dinner, Ji-sik praises his in-laws from head to toe. He says he's lucky to have such a wonderful wife. His changed attitude makes the elderly couple very happy. Just then, Jae-soon returns home. She's shocked to see her husband there. Before she can say anything, Ji-sik picks up their son to leave. Not wanting to worry her parents, Jae-soon follows her husband home. Back at home, Ji-sik prepares a candlelit dinner. To cheer up his wife, he promises to register their son immediately. He'll treat the boy as his own child and cancel the credit card spending alerts. She can now shop freely with the card. Soon, he keeps his promise, taking Jae-soon to register their son officially. Though Ji-sik looks reluctant, from then on, the home becomes much more peaceful. All three children can now play together happily. But this happy time is soon ruined by his ex-wife's family. His ex-mother-in-law finds Ji-sik, hoping he'll remarry her daughter. He warns her to stay out of his life, saying he's already registered Jae-soon's son and fully accepts the boy. The mother tells her daughter about this, making the ex-wife furious. Later, during Ji-sik's important meeting, his ex-wife sneaks into his car. She won't let anyone take her daughter's inheritance. He says it's none of her business. When Jae-soon calls, the ex-wife throws his phone away, causing a car accident. Both lose consciousness. Seeing her husband survive the crash, Jae-soon isn't happy at all. She wants to divorce him immediately. Weak from the accident, he tries to explain, but he falls heavily to the ground because his injured ex-wife is lying right beside him. Back home, Jae-soon starts packing her things. She doesn't want to stay in this sad villa for another minute. Then she takes her son and moves back to her parents' house. Despite his injuries, Ji-sik tries to leave the hospital. Before leaving, he angrily tells his ex-wife to disappear forever. Ji-sik doesn't go explain things to his wife right away. Instead, he returns to work. Because of the accident, he missed an important project, causing huge losses for his company. Sik uses all his savings to cover the losses. He even has to resign. When Sik finally comes home, he sees the empty rooms. Feeling completely broken, he loses all hope. That night, Sik drags his injured body to his father-in-law's house. He honestly tells Jae-soon everything about how his ex-wife kept bothering him. He thinks his wife will forgive him, but this time, Jae-soon has made up her mind. She yells at him, "As long as our 2 daughters exist, you'll always be connected to your ex-wife, and this will keep happening. What matters is, you could have pulled your ex-wife out of the car, but you didn't." Sik explains he was rushing to sign a contract, so he didn't want to deal with his ex-wife. Jae-soon thinks this is just an excuse. They end up arguing and parting angrily. Before leaving, Sik leaves some money so Jae-soon can stay comfortably at her parents' house, and they can both cool down. Later, both mothers-in-law bring gifts to please Sik. When they meet at the door, they start fighting until a realtor brings clients to see the house. Then they learn Sik has gone bankrupt and sold the villa. Now he lives in a small rented place with his kids. They struggle to adjust to being poor. Luckily, the older daughter cares for her dad. She's become very responsible, taking care of her little sister so her dad can work and support the family. Later, Sik meets his father-in-law alone and tells him everything that happened, saying he's too ashamed to face Jae-soon. After hearing this, the old father goes home and tells his daughter to consider going back and helping Sik through this hard time. But now the mother changes her attitude completely. She thinks Jae-soon should have divorced Sik before he went bankrupt. Now she definitely shouldn't go back to him. Meanwhile, Jae-soon's ex-husband gets out of prison, with a luxury car picking him up. He must be someone important. Sik now works as a low-level product manager, working long hours every day. The older daughter takes good care of her little sister at home. Since neither can cook, they survive on instant noodles. Jae-soon becomes a sales clerk, but struggles with this new job after being a housewife. She doesn't sell a single egg in an hour. After work, the mother and daughters meet by chance. The older daughter feels guilty about what happened before and can't look Jae-soon in the eye, but she begs Jae-soon to come back and take care of dad and the family. Soon, Jae-soon follows her daughter to Sik's new rented place. Seeing the sink full of dirty dishes, she rolls up her sleeves and cleans the whole house. When Sik comes home from work, he's shocked to see the clean house. There's even a warm meal waiting in the kitchen. Hearing Jae-soon was here, he rushes out to find her. Sik feels deep regret now. People often don't appreciate what they have until it's gone. He had such a good wife but didn't treasure her. The older daughter notices her sister is sick, but dad doesn't answer his work phone. She has no choice but to call Jae-soon again. Hearing the little one is ill, Jae-soon immediately carries her to the hospital. Luckily, it's just a stomach bug, nothing serious. Jae-soon sees the empty fridge at home and asks the older girl, "Why isn't your mom or grandma helping?" She learns that since Sik's bankruptcy, the girl's birth mother and grandma cut all contact. Jae-soon's heart breaks for the girls. She braves the cold to wash all their laundry, cooks them stomach-friendly porridge, and reminds the older sister before leaving, "Don't forget your sister's medicine." When Sik returns, he sees the clean clothes and sheets. But when he excitedly checks the rooms, Jae-soon is already gone. When the mother learns her daughter went back to her poor husband Sik again, she scolds her for getting involved in this mess. She warns her to cut ties with Sik immediately. The next day, Jae-soon cooks a nice meal for the sisters. The girls are happy to see Jae-soon, but Jae-soon has come to say goodbye. She asks them not to contact her anymore. She tells the older sister to take good care of the younger one. She hugs both girls tightly before leaving. Their crying breaks Jae-soon's heart. Just as Jae-soon is about to leave, Sik grabs her arm. He knows he has no right to stop her. To protect her from his troubles, he promises to finalize their divorce soon. The younger sister complains about eating rice with soy sauce every day. She cries for fried chicken. The older sister tells her to understand their dad's situation, but the younger sister angrily knocks the food to the floor. The last bit of rice is wasted because of her tantrum. Sik hears this and feels terrible. He picks up his crying daughter. Suddenly, the older sister runs outside holding her nose. She's been overworked and eating poorly since they moved. Now she keeps getting nosebleeds. Adults can only take so much before breaking down. That evening, Sik sits alone on the floor, lost in thought. Meanwhile, their birth mother has changed. She tricked an investor into giving her money. Now she opens a fried chicken shop to start her business. One day, the older sister finds a package at home. Inside are new clothes from their birth mother. Remembering how their mother acted before, the sister angrily throws the clothes in the trash. She stomps on them in frustration. Even their father can't say anything. The next day, their birth mother brings them fried chicken. Seeing how happy her sister is, the older sister can't throw it away. She lets her sister eat it alone. Life is hard for the older sister. At school, kids bully her. They mock her for being abandoned by both mothers. They call her a stray dog nobody wants. She fights back and gets hurt. Tearfully, she goes to Jae-soon for comfort. When Jae-soon hears about the bullying, Jae-soon doesn't just stand by and do nothing. But she doesn't make a scene at the school like a crazy person. Instead, she politely gathers the students and parents together. She explains that the parents' divorce isn't caused by anything the child did wrong. After the father went bankrupt, the whole family moved to a rented house. This isn't such a big deal. And who here can promise their life will always be smooth? Jae-soon even accurately describes each child's good points and talents. She says, these are all things her stepdaughter wrote about in her diary. This makes the bullying kids feel very guilty. Everything Jae-soon does is seen by Sik, who rushed to the school. Later, the stepdaughter sends Jae-soon a thank you text. But by accident, Jae-soon's mother sees the message. Why go to that kid's school when you're getting divorced? Then she meets her son-in-law alone. She tells him to hurry up with the divorce. She also tells him to watch his daughter and stop bothering Jae-soon. Sik looks helpless but agrees to his mother-in-law's demands. The next day, Sik takes his daughters for fried chicken. He tells them not to contact their stepmom anymore. This makes his daughter feel terrible. Soon, the day comes for their divorce appointment. But Sik doesn't show up on time. When he finally arrives at the office, he suddenly says he's hungry and wants to eat first. Seeing her tired husband, Jae-soon kindly pushes the food toward him. Then Sik starts speaking from his heart. He thanks Jae-soon for everything she's done for the family. He regrets always being suspicious of her. He never cared about her or their son's feelings. But past disappointments don't just disappear with an apology. At home, Jae-soon takes off her ring. She puts it away completely. Sik also removes his ring. Their marriage is officially over. The stepdaughter writes Jae-soon a letter. Thank you for taking care of us. Please come back. Now Jae-soon feels very confused. But during dinner, her mother keeps pushing her. She tells her to finish the divorce paperwork. She says Jae-soon should remarry quickly and have kids with a rich man. This time, her father strongly disagrees. He thinks Jae-soon should find someone who shares her life situation, so their child won't get hurt again. But Jae-soon doesn't want to think about marriage now. In the following days, Jae-soon keeps remembering Sik's words. Deep down, she wants to give him another chance, so she texts him to meet. When they meet, Jae-soon teases Sik, saying she can't forget how he cried. He lowers his head in shame. Jae-soon says they married too quickly and both pretended to be someone else. That's why their marriage failed. Then she suggests starting over as friends and getting to know each other properly. Sik can't hide his happiness. He invites Jae-soon for drinks. Jae-soon smiles widely at his message. After her mom falls asleep, she sneaks out. They meet at a street food stall. Sik stops acting macho. Jae-soon becomes more open too. Soon, they both feel butterflies. They hold hands, acting like young lovers again. Distance really makes hearts grow fonder. Just when everyone thinks they'll get back together, Jae-soon's ex arrives in a fancy car. Their son told him about Jae-soon's divorce. This gives him ideas. Si-bang shows off his CEO business card. Jae-soon's mom suddenly changes her tune, asking if he's remarried. She wants them back together immediately. But Jae-soon's dad tells him to leave. He knows Si-bang just got out of prison and has been jailed twice. He won't trust him with his family. At home, Mom tells Jae-soon about her ex's visit and how he's now a big shot. But Jae-soon says he's just pretending. She's over him completely. Meanwhile, love-struck Sik messes up at work, losing their company's spot at a trade show. His boss yells at him angrily. When Sik stumbles over his words, Jae-soon steps forward. Jae-soon steps forward and starts complaining to the boss. She says she has elderly parents and children to support. Looking pitiful, she begs the boss to help her. As expected, with Jae-soon playing the victim, the boss finally agrees to her request. But when Jae-soon gets home, her mother immediately scolds her, warning her to cut ties with that poor husband. Next day, Se-bang arrives smiling. He flatters his ex-mother-in-law, then takes money-filled envelopes from his pocket, giving one to each of them. Now the mother likes Se-bang more and more. She treats Se-bang to good food and drinks. When Jae-soon comes home, she's shocked. She angrily calls her ex-husband outside to talk. She says she and her son lived poorly for years because of debts Se-bang left behind. Her current husband helped pay them off. She can't believe Se-bang dares to visit now. But Se-bang says she doesn't love her new husband. He claims he can now support their son and will send him to private school. Jae-soon angrily scoffs at this. When they divorced, he said he wouldn't take their son back. Now he shamelessly acts like nothing happened. They part angrily. That night, Jae-soon dresses up nicely, lying that she's going to a tea party with coworkers, then rushes out with her clothes. She's actually excited to meet Ji-sik. Ji-sik warmly holds her hand in his pocket. Jae-soon happily holds his arm, but her mother sees them together. She confronts Ji-sik despite Jae-soon's protests, warning him to stay away, saying her ex wants to get back together. "If you have any heart, leave my daughter alone." The mother returns home, gathering family to talk sense into Jae-soon. Jae-soon says, "Only with Ji-sik does she feel love. He's a good man to me." Mother says, "He's poor. Goodness doesn't put food on the table." She continues scolding, telling her to face reality and prepare to remarry Se-bang. Meanwhile, Ji-sik drinks alone at home. Ji-sik can't stop thinking about what Jae-soon's mother said today. He tosses and turns all night, unable to sleep. He knows he can defeat anyone for Jae-soon, but he's afraid he can't compete with her son's real father. Jae-soon quickly comforts her husband. She admits she has no feelings left for Se-bang. Jae-soon's kindness finally calms Ji-sik down. Meanwhile, their two daughters stay busy. They bring handmade cards to their brother at school. The younger daughter even brings candy for him, but their mother thinks Ji-sik put them up to doing all this. While eating pork rib soup, Ji-sik gets a call from Jae-soon. She playfully says, "I want some soup too." Jae-soon accidentally coughs. Hearing this, Ji-sik immediately brings her the soup. He even thoughtfully brings cold medicine. This sweet gesture deeply touches Jae-soon. Just then, his long-absent ex-wife appears. She gives Ji-sik 900,000 won for child support. Ji-sik rushes to return the money, but finds her fried chicken shop has closed. Then he unexpectedly meets his former mother-in-law. Jae-soon sees this and misunderstands. She thinks he's still involved with his ex-wife. The hope that had just begun to grow in her heart fades away. Later, Ji-sik visits Jae-soon's parents. He begs her mother to let them remarry. But his situation has changed for the worse. Her mother won't even look at him. Her father says, "He's still too immature. How can a poor man support a wife and family?" Heartbroken, Ji-sik leaves. Then Jae-soon's father advises her to think more about her son's future. He doesn't want her to stay poor. Under pressure from her parents and for her son, Jae-soon meets Ji-sik. She asks for time to think things through. She needs space to plan her future. Meanwhile, her other ex-husband Se-bang discovers their son had depression. He storms into Jae-soon's house, shouting. He pushes her and yells angrily, "I thought you were giving our son a good life. Instead, you let him develop mental problems. Instead, you let him develop mental problems. Instead, you let him develop mental problems. Are you even fit to be his mother? What were you doing while his stepfather and stepsister were tormenting him?" Jae-soon stays silent. That night, Se-bang angrily finds Ji-sik. Without a word, he punches him. Then he demands to know why Ji-sik abused his son. How could he let such a young child develop mental illness? Ji-sik finally realizes what happened. The next day, Ji-sik confronts Jae-soon. He scolds her for not telling him about her son's illness earlier. Jae-soon says she feared he'd reject the boy since he's not his real son. Moved, Ji-sik pulls her into a hug. Their relationship improves because of this. Meanwhile, Se-bang is furious about his son's condition. He decides to take the boy to live with him, but Jae-soon, as a mother, refuses. "You've never acted like a father since the day he was born. You didn't even call to check on him. On top of that, you left all your debts to me." Despite Jae-soon's words, Se-bang insists on taking the child. Actually, Se-bang wants to use this to force Jae-soon to remarry him. Jae-soon's mother fully supports this idea. Later, Jae-soon meets her ex-husband again. She flips her water glass onto the table. She tells him their relationship is like this spilled water. It ended the day it was poured out. With that, she leaves. Just when their drama seems over, the boy's grandma meets Grandpa while picking him up from school. As the excited boy runs across the street to greet Grandpa, he gets hit by a car. Doctors say he might remain in a vegetative state. Jae-soon feels her world collapsing. Her ex-husband yells at the grandparents. The old couple feels terribly guilty. Meanwhile, Sik wants to contact Jae-soon but remembers she asked for time alone. He decides not to call. Then he meets Jae-soon's mom going to the hospital. He politely greets her, but she curses at him instead. She warns him to stay away from her daughter, says Jae-soon will remarry Se-bang soon, and tells him not to greet her in public anymore. Sik's pride is crushed by his mother-in-law's words. But the next day, Sik learns from his sister-in-law that his stepson was in a car accident. Sik rushes to the hospital, but Jae-soon is too upset to care about him right now. All she wants is for her son to wake up soon. She tells Sik to leave and not come back. Jae-soon's reaction makes Sik feel heartbroken. Soon, the boy finally wakes up. Hearing the news, the two hug each other and cry happily. Later, Jae-soon's fiancé takes the family to see their wedding house. Her mother loves the huge, fancy home, but Jae-soon is the only one who looks unhappy. When they go to pick a wedding dress, Jae-soon still seems sad, because deep down, she doesn't want to marry him. Later, Se-bang proudly invites Sik out to brag. He warns Sik to stay away from Jae-soon. Se-bang says Jae-soon doesn't really love him. She's only marrying him to pay off her debts. He throws a stack of cash on the table and offers to pay for Sik to have fun with some women. Instead of ignoring the insult, Sik fights back. He talks about all the happy times he shared with Jae-soon, things Se-bang has never experienced with her. Angry and speechless, Se-bang throws his glass against the wall. The next day, Sik sees Jae-soon and Se-bang shopping for furniture. He watches sadly as the woman he loves walks away with another man. He never thought Jae-soon would give in, so he asks his company to send him overseas. He wants to leave this painful place forever. Later, Sik drinks alone at a street stall, the same place where he and Jae-soon first met. Memories of their time together flood his mind. Before leaving, he buys a gift and visits his stepson at school. He apologizes for not taking better care of him. He hopes the boy will grow up healthy and listen to his mother. He makes a promise with the boy to visit him when he's older. That night at home, Jae-soon sees the toy in her son's hands. Her son tells her everything Sik said. She realizes Sik is planning to leave. That night, she knocks on his door and begs him not to go. She only agreed to marry Se-bang to make up for the pain she caused her son all these years. But every morning, you're still the one she thinks about. Then, Jae-soon begs Sik to give her more time. She needs to figure out how to handle their relationship. The next morning, Jae-soon calls Se-bang to her house. In front of everyone, she says she wants to cancel their wedding. She'll decide later when she's thought it through. But her mom says she's already booked the wedding date and venue. Even the invitations are sent to family and friends. Se-bang can't take it anymore. Furious, he yells at Jae-soon, asking if she's calling it off for another man. Jae-soon doesn't hide it anymore. She says Se-bang is nothing compared to Sik. The only reason she hesitated was because she worried about her son. The next day is Sik's birthday. Jae-soon brings a cake she ordered to his house. She doesn't know Se-bang is watching her closely. Feeling betrayed, Se-bang loses control. In anger, he punches Sik. Sik, hit for no reason, fights back. He gets up and starts fighting Se-bang. Jae-soon can't take it and slaps Sik. That slap ends their relationship. Actually, Jae-soon saw Se-bang pick up a stick. She hit Sik to protect him, but Se-bang sees through her plan. He turns to Jae-soon and confronts her. Facing Se-bang's violent temper, Jae-soon refuses to live in fear with him. She firmly rejects his demand to get back together. Se-bang, furious, runs to Jae-soon's mom to complain. He says he's been cheated on for no reason. Her mom gets angry too. She scolds Jae-soon for throwing away a good life. She says Jae-soon is foolishly clinging to a loser. After Se-bang leaves, she explodes. "You're getting old with no money or skills. How will you survive? Figure it out yourself." Afraid of losing her rich son-in-law, the mom apologizes to Se-bang for Jae-soon. She promises to keep her daughter away from that good-for-nothing Sik. Se-bang pretends to be hesitant, but he knows Jae-soon's parents are desperate. Back home, the mom finds Jae-soon's divorce papers. She urges Jae-soon to go to the civil affairs office and finalize the divorce. But the moment Jae-soon hands over the divorce papers, she changes her mind. She takes back the divorce application and leaves. Then, Jae-soon gathers her courage and calls Sik. But Sik sees the call and hangs up immediately. At this time, Sik is packing to work abroad. He accidentally finds their divorce papers. Remembering how Jae-soon slapped him yesterday, he takes the papers to the civil affairs office, feeling hopeless. Without hesitation, he submits the divorce agreement. Jae-soon, who just stepped outside, sees this happen. The misunderstanding between them grows worse. Jae-soon tears up the agreement, no longer caring. She decides to get back with Se-bang. That night, she asks Se-bang to meet alone. She admits she has completely moved on from the past. She begs Se-bang to forgive her and agrees to hold the wedding as planned. The next day, Jim-sik runs into Se-bang while dining with his boss. He's shocked to learn Se-bang is a fraudster. He's even been to jail multiple times, and he's still scamming people without remorse. Panicked, Jim-sik rushes to Jae-soon's father. He tells him everything, but he's surprised his father-in-law already knew. Later, Jae-soon's mom sees her son-in-law arrested outside the police station. Jim-sik quickly lies, saying the officer is just a friend. He claims they were just chatting. Clueless, the mother feels proud of her son-in-law. At home, she brags about his impressive connections. She even says the police chief is an old friend. Her husband realizes how serious this is. He calls Se-bang into a room. Se-bang promises he won't return to crime. He assures his future father-in-law he'll take care of Jae-soon. But the mother overhears everything outside the door. She storms in, demanding to know what's going on. No matter how greedy she is, she won't let her daughter marry a man who's been to jail. That night, she watches Jae-soon sleep, heartbroken. She grieves over her daughter's unlucky fate. Married 3 times, yet never to a good man. After thinking it over, the parents decide to keep hiding the truth. The mother thinks Se-bang, despite his past, is still better than her ex-son-in-law who lived in a rented room. At least he can provide for Jae-soon's needs, so she believes marrying Se-bang is the best ending for her daughter. The next day, they meet Se-bang again. They warn him never to repeat his crimes after marriage. They also tell Se-bang to quickly transfer the property under his name to Jae-soon. Se-bang happily agrees to their request. Meanwhile, Jae-soon looks at the jewelry Se-bang gave her. She goes to the river and throws her ex-husband Jim-sik's ring into the water. She wants to leave the past behind. On her way back, she runs into Jim-sik carrying his luggage. Turns out, Jim-sik is leaving for a job abroad. He tries to shake hands with Jae-soon to say goodbye, but when Jae-soon reaches out, the ring on her finger cuts off any remaining feelings between them. They wish each other well and part ways. Soon, Jae-soon's wedding day arrives. As Se-bang excitedly heads to the ceremony, the police arrest him on the spot. While everyone anxiously waits for the groom, Jae-soon's father frantically calls Se-bang. He learns about the arrest instead. The father's legs go weak, and he almost collapses. Jae-soon grows impatient waiting. She sends her sister to check outside when her parents rush in nervously. They tell her Se-bang was taken to jail. Jae-soon immediately goes to the police station. She slaps Se-bang across the face. She never thought the same thing from 3 years ago would happen again. Heartbroken, she leaves the station, angrily tearing off her wedding dress. She yells at her parents for making her marry a criminal just for money. Furious, she cuts ties with her family. Her sister, in a taxi, spots Jae-soon on the street. She and their father were heading to the airport. Wanting to reconcile Jae-soon and their father, the sister fakes a stomachache after boarding. Jim-sik has to take her to the hospital, delaying their trip. Their plans to go abroad are postponed. Meanwhile, Jae-soon packs her things, ready to start over. To support herself and her son, she decides to sell the jewelry Se-bang gave her. But she gets another shock. All 4 pieces of wedding jewelry are fake. Though disappointed, she knows life must go on. With help from a realtor, she finds an apartment with no deposit and moves in. Her family, unable to reach her, starts panicking. The desperate parents even put up missing person posters. Meanwhile, Jim-sik works hard at the company and quickly increases its profits. The shareholders then all agree to let Jim-sik return as CEO. He also gets back all the money he had to pay before. Jim-sik buys back his villa and moves in with his daughter. Being back in this familiar place makes him emotional. Every corner of the house reminds him of Jae-soon. The next day, his sister accidentally finds Jae-soon's missing person flyer. She quickly gives it to her father. Only then does Jim-sik learn that Jae-soon ran away from home. He rushes to Jae-soon's parents' house to ask about her. Her mother isn't proud like before. She holds Jim-sik's hand and begs him to help find her daughter. Jim-sik promises they will find Jae-soon. With no money, Jae-soon sells sushi to survive. After calling out for hours, she finally sells one, but the sale falls through because she has no change. She and her son can only eat the leftover sushi. This makes her son very disappointed. Still hungry, the boy steals snacks from his classmates. When Jae-soon finds out, she angrily hits him with a bamboo stick. Later, she tearfully treats his wounds. She blames herself for making her son suffer. To improve their life, she works even harder. After selling sushi in the morning, she finds a job selling seafood in the afternoon. Meanwhile, her ex-husband hires a private detective, hoping to find Jae-soon quickly. Her father also makes a video and posts it online, but they still can't find any news about her. Back home, her parents keep arguing. They blame each other for past mistakes. Feeling guilty, the father cries alone in his room. Soon, a month passes. Finally, the detective has good news. He finds Jae-soon in Incheon. At the same time, her father learns from a classmate that she sells sushi in an Incheon underpass. But that day, Jae-soon doesn't show up. Exhausted from work, she falls sick. Her parents have no choice but to wait their day and night for her to appear. Finally, their patience pays off, and she comes. But Jae-soon isn't ready to forgive them. She packs up her stall to leave immediately. Her parents quickly stop her. During their argument, the wrapped sushi falls to the ground. Jae-soon, exhausted, asks her parents what they want from her. She watches her elderly mother pick up the sushi from the floor and eat it. Unable to bear it, Jae-soon grabs her bag and walks away. Her parents quickly follow her. They beg her to come home with them. They tell her Sik is searching everywhere for her. This makes Jae-soon feel ashamed. She thinks about how she married a liar, and even hurt Sik badly. Now she feels too ashamed to live. She warns her parents not to tell her ex-husband where she is, or they'll never see her again. Then she turns and leaves. Sik is upset because he can't find Jae-soon. That night he visits her father to drink and talk. But the family hides the truth about their missing daughter. They even tell him to stop looking. Seeing this irresponsible family, Sik feels terrible. One day, the father secretly visits his grandson at school. He takes the boy out for braised pork. It's the boy's first proper meal since leaving home. The grandfather sadly touches his grandson's thin body. Then he follows the boy to his daughter's rented room. Seeing the poor living conditions, he touches the cold floor and realizes she's still using coal for heat. His heart breaks seeing this. Worried, he watches her work from a corner every day. One day, a woman comes to return some fish, but the bag shows she's already eaten half. Jae-soon refuses to give money back. Suddenly, the woman grabs Jae-soon's hair. Her hidden father rushes to help, but the fight gets worse. Finally, he has to call the police. Afterwards, he tries to help his daughter up, but she pushes him away. She says her parents abandoned her, and she'll never need their help. The father feels terrible. Back home, he tells his wife what happened. Next day, the mother waits with food for Jae-soon, hoping to give them a good meal. But Jae-soon throws the food down. Seeing her mother's guilty face, Jae-soon stays firm. She wants to prove something. Even after 3 divorces at age 40, she can support herself and her son. Seeing his wife return upset, the father comforts her. He suggests they leave their daughter alone for now. Why not relax in the living room and watch some TV? Suddenly, her ex-husband Sik shows up unannounced. He finds the whole family casually watching a variety show. Furious, Sik turns off the TV. He yells at them, saying they're being heartless. No one even knows if Jae-soon is alive or dead. How can you just sit here watching TV? He storms out of the room in anger. Her father quickly follows Sik outside. Finally, he tells Sik the truth about Jae-soon. Hearing this, Sik immediately drives to the market to find her. Meanwhile, Jae-soon rushes to make a delivery, balancing a fish basin on her head. When she spots Sik, she panics and drops the basin. As she kneels to pick up the fish, Sik runs over and hugs her tightly. He begs her to come back to him, but Jae-soon tells him, "I don't have the right to love anyone now." Before Sik can respond, she lifts the basin and disappears into the crowd. After learning to sell fish this way, her son starts rebelling against her. He even fakes being sick to skip school. Jae-soon has no choice but to take him to the market. She doesn't know his classmates mock him for smelling like fish. After Jae-soon keeps rejecting him, Sik turns his attention to her son. He has his daughters invite the boy out to play. Worried about her son, Jae-soon joins them. Slowly, their relationship begins to heal. The next morning, Sik visits Jae-soon's house. He declares his wish to remarry her in front of her family. Her parents are moved by his sincerity. They don't know he's moved back into his mansion, but they finally accept him. After bonding with her son, the boy even calls Sik Dad. This makes Jae-sik more determined to win Jae-soon back. After dropping the boy at school, Jae-sik rushes to the market to tell Jae-soon, "Your son called me dad today." He promises her, "I'll be his last father." Then he starts helping her with work. But their son still struggles at school. Kids still tease him about the fish smell. Hurt and embarrassed, he soaks his clothes in a vegetable basin at home. Jae-soon grabs a cane to punish him without asking why. Luckily, the uncle arrives just in time to stop her. He tells Jae-soon why her son doesn't want to go to school. After learning the truth, Jae-soon feels terrible about herself. Watching her sleeping son, she quietly cries. Feeling guilty, Jae-soon breaks the cane in her hands. She hugs her son, full of regret. The next day, she swallows her pride and takes her son back to her parents' house. She asks them to look after him. She also gives them money for his living expenses. Her mother refuses to take it at first, but her father understands she's trying to keep her dignity. He agrees to accept the money. After sending her son away, Jae-soon saves every penny, even refusing to turn on the heater. She ends up making herself sick from the cold. Jae-sik sees this and quickly takes her to a restaurant. There, Jae-soon suddenly asks Jae-sik for a loan. She says she wants to open a snack shop. Seeing his chance, Jae-sik secretly feels happy. He generously agrees to lend her the money, but he asks Jae-soon to spend every weekend with him. Jae-soon angrily kicks him but agrees. The next day, Jae-soon discusses her business plan with her parents. They think opening a shop is a good idea. Her mother suggests she move back home. This way, she can save money and see her son every day. After some persuasion, Jae-soon finally agrees. Hearing this, Jae-sik rushes over to help her pack. But Jae-soon treats her parents' house like a hotel, barely talking to them. In the following days, Jae-sik is always by Jae-soon's side, whether she's choosing a shop or handing out flyers. He never misses a chance to impress her. Jae-soon won't admit it, but she starts being nicer to Jae-sik. Still, she refuses to get back together, so Jae-sik changes his approach. One day, he pretends to complain in front of Jae-soon. He lies that his kids want him to find a new mom. Someone young and pretty, he says. Not a divorced woman with kids. Not someone who runs away when angry. But Jae-soon sees through his act. She tells him to stop wasting time and focus on earning money to get their house back. That way, the kids can live comfortably. Then she tells Jae-sik to leave. Jae-sik says he won't come back again. He grabs his coat and walks out. True to his word, Jae-sik stays away for days. He picks up his coat and leaves. As expected, Jae-sik doesn't show up for days. Jae-soon can't help feeling a little sad. The next day, Jae-sik comes to the shop again. He says he's tired of being alone and needs to get married. Since she won't take him back, they should just raise their kids separately. After saying this, Jae-sik starts going to matchmaking events arranged by a marriage agency. He even brags about it to his ex-wife, saying the women he meets are young and pretty. Hearing this, Jae-soon's hands start shaking. Trying to stay calm, she asks, "Are you happy with the dates?" To her surprise, he keeps praising the women. Jae-soon can't sit still after hearing his attitude. She never expected things to go this way. She scolds him for rushing into marriage. Jae-sik asks why she's so upset. Caught off guard, Jae-soon panics and accidentally drops her water bowl. Jae-sik grabs her arm, wanting a clear answer. But Jae-soon still refuses to change her mind. This makes Jae-sik feel terrible, so he decides to date another woman seriously. The next day, Jae-soon meets her stepdaughter outside the shop. She asks why the girl hasn't visited lately. The girl says, "My dad is getting married soon and told us not to see Jae-soon anymore." Now Jae-soon realizes how serious this is. Her brother comes to persuade her, showing her Jae-sik's wedding invitation. Jae-soon still acts like she doesn't care. That night, Jae-sik tries one last time to win her back, but she coldly rejects him again. Soon, it's Jae-sik's wedding day. Jae-soon tries to act normal, but then she cuts her finger. As she looks for a bandage, she remembers how he used to bandage her cuts. She can't take it anymore. Afraid of losing him forever, she runs to the wedding venue. She wants to stop the wedding, but when she opens the door, the hall is empty except for Jae-sik. Confused, she walks up to him. "What's going on?" she asks. Confused, Jae-soon opens the wedding invitation and sees her own name written as the bride. Turns out, this was all Jae-sik's carefully planned proposal. Before Jae-soon can react, Jae-sik kneels and takes out a prepared engagement ring and gently puts it on Jae-soon's finger. Jae-soon is finally moved by Jae-sik's sincerity. Though the wedding setup looks simple, none of that matters to them anymore. Jae-sik then takes Jae-soon back to their old villa. The whole family gathers to celebrate their reunion. When evening comes, the sister holds Jae-soon's hand and finally calls her Mom. Hearing this fills Jae-soon with overwhelming joy. Two unrelated people become family again. Cherishing their hard-won time together, they hug tightly and promise never to divorce again. Even their arguments feel happy now. Maybe this is what happiness means. Jae-sik tells Jae-soon how desperately her parents searched for her after she left. They even used huge posters to find her. Seeing her father's search video makes her feel both guilty and touched. The next day, Jae-soon takes her mother to get a haircut. The family returns to their happy routine. 3 months later, at her brother's wedding, Jae-soon discovers she's pregnant. They finally get the child they wanted. The whole family celebrates with blessings. Everyone is happy for them. That's the end of the drama Perfect Bride. Hit that subscribe button to support us. Thanks a lot, and see you next time.